Hello, and welcome to the Hosodathon, the podcast that #unveils the films of one of the world's greatest animation directors, Mamoru Hosoda. I'm Michael Leader.
And I'm Steph Watts, and we've seen a lot of them.
And I'm Jake Cunningham, and I'm going beast mode on them.
So join us on our quest into the glorious world of Mamoru Hosoda. Jake, Steph, welcome back. We've made it. We started a handful of episodes ago with The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and now we are up to date with Mamoru Hosoda with the brand new film, Belle. Jake, you can now say that you've seen a lot of them too.
I can, yeah. This one's been, as we said in our first episode, I've kind of ruined our normal format for this one. Or I kind of started about 3/4 of the way through, then watched the finale, then went back to the start, and then caught up. Which I suppose, considering the kind of wibbly-wobbly worlds and times of all these films, is maybe appropriate.
It absolutely is. And it's so good to be talking about a new release as well. So this stuff is like fresh to us. It's not something that's frozen in amber in history. Something where people are discovering it themselves as well. So
yeah. Was that a little Gallagher impression there, Michael?
Gallagher who?
Oasis walking out into Nebworth. This is history.
Is it just because I've got a Mancunian accent?
I thought you put a little twang on it.
I would never knowingly refer to Oasis, but I won't look back in anger at that reference, Jake. We can only look forward to the final episode in the Hosodathon miniseries, his take on Beauty and the Beast for the social media age, Belle. Of course, listeners, this is a brand new film. You may not have had a chance to watch it yet, and we do go into some detail and depth. There will be spoilers for the back half of the film, so if you don't want to be spoiled, we'll be here when you come back after you've seen the film. But before we do any of that spoilery stuff, Steph, should we have a quick recap of the synopsis of the film?
Yes. Suzu is a 17-year-old high school student living in a village with her father. For years, she's only been a shadow of herself. One day, she enters You, a virtual world of 5 billion members on the internet. There, she is not Suzu anymore, but Belle, a world-famous singer. She soon meets with a mysterious creature, and together they embark on a journey of adventures, challenges, and love in their quest to become who they truly are.
Thank you, Steph. Now, this is normally the point of the show where we'd go deep on the context of this film, and whilst Michael is a beacon of knowledge and shares his knowledge of the films of Hosoda every week, we're actually doing something different with this series, because there's someone else who could perhaps provide a bit of context for this film too, right?
Perhaps the most perfect person to provide context to the films of Mamoru Hosoda. Yes, next episode we're talking to the man himself, Mamoru Hosoda. We go very deep into the context behind Belle, but also talk about all sorts of questions and queries and themes that we picked up along the miniseries. So tune in next episode for a lot of that, but let's have a little bit of a brief contextual kind of setup for our chat. So Belle is another film that's inspired by Hosoda's family, his daughter, the one who inspired Mirai. She's now a little older, and he said in interviews that he noticed that when she was at home, she was full of confidence, but once she started going to nursery, that confidence evaporated, and he was concerned, thinking about her future. What's it like being a child today, where you have your own world, where you're full of confidence, and then you have a phone, and you go on to the online world and have to then go through all those experiences where, you know, the great wide world of the internet, what would happen to her there? So that sparked something in him, and it puts us back into familiar Hosoda territory. Think back to Summer Wars, another film that looked at emerging online worlds, although we're now a decade on from that almost, and things have changed even more. And also think back to The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. This is another film about a teenage girl. He didn't go for a toddler. He had a teenage girl as the protagonist, and she's kind of similar to the protagonist in The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, figuring herself out during those awkward teen years with a lot of high school politics as well. Another key film to mention here is one we talked about way back at the beginning of the miniseries, Disney's Beauty and the Beast. That film came out in Japan when Hosoda was planning to maybe throw in the towel and give up working in animation altogether. But he saw that movie and was inspired by it to stick with it. And, if he hadn't stuck with it, we wouldn't have had this miniseries at all. And the films as well, gosh, imagine. But here he's borrowing the storytelling framework of Beauty and the Beast for Belle and sort of resetting it for the 21st century with the relationship between this girl, our young protagonists, and her avatar, and this mysterious beast-like character who's the social pariah and scapegoat of the online world. Very quickly, we should shout out some of Hosoda's collaborators on this project because we have all the way through. Again, he likes to look outside of traditional Japanese animation circles, and here he works with Cartoon Saloon, a studio we've covered in depth already on the podcast in the past. They provided backgrounds at certain points in the film. We have Jin Kim, who is a landmark animator and character designer who's worked at Disney for many years, has lots of credits there, worked on Frozen and Tangled, sort of created the signature Disney character look of the last 20 years. He ended up back at Disney very recently working on Encanto. And to design the world of this online world of You, the digital realm in the film, Hosoda looked to work with a chap called Eric Wong, who's an architect based in London, and he hadn't worked in the film industry before, which is a bit of a recurring theme with us and Hosoda's collaborators. He just apparently came across Wong's work on his website and thought he'd be a good fit to design the online world. And since this is a film made in the age of COVID, a lot of these, I think pretty much all these international collaborations happened remotely, and they only liaised editorially over Zoom meetings, which is very timely. Belle premiered in Cannes last year, 2021, not in competition, but part of the official selection. So a bit of an upgrade from Mirai, and it came out in Japan summer 2021, and it was a hit. It comfortably outgrossed Mirai. I think maybe even double what Mirai made, and even beat Boy and the Beast to become Hosoda's best performing film in Japan to date. And it was only third in the highest grossing films of 2021, coming behind two franchise movies, the most recent Detective Conan film and the final film in the Evangelion Rebuild series. So this is Hosoda back on the upward swing after Mirai, both in terms of critical appreciation, but definitely the box office as well. And we can't talk about international release and awards and everything that we normally talk about here because we're still waiting to hear whether it's been nominated and whether it might win certain prizes, and of course it's only just coming out in the UK, but that brings us up to date and we can expect lots more depth and detail from the man himself in next episode. But before any of that's next episode. We don't care about that right now. All I care about is what you, Jake and Steph, thought about Belle. So, Jake, Steph, we've been on this journey, the Hosodathon. We have seen all the films, we talked about them. Now we're here at Belle, and we can ask the question, how does this relate to, build on, tie in with all of the things we've talked about and seen so far?
Belle is the ultimate Mamoru Hosoda film.
Oof, I love it, right out of the gate.
And it feels like we've retroactively constructed our conversations to build to this point. And I suppose in a way we have, because we always knew we were coming to Belle and we had seen it. And I suppose it had maybe incepted ideas into us that shaped the way that we looked at those other films. And that can't be helped. But it feels like every single one of his films is building up to this point. This feels like the finale in a way. And I have no idea what he's going to do after this, because this feels like he's finally executing all of these different things that he's fascinated by. And for me, is doing it in the most satisfying way that he has done. I think in the previous times we've kind of been like, oh yeah, I like that he's going for that, but it doesn't really connect to the emotions. Or he's got the emotions here, but it doesn't really give you, it doesn't really explore this theme that he's interested in. But this is absolutely nailing all of that stuff that we've spoken about before, about the internet, about familial relationships, about the style of it, him as this amazing kind of silent filmmaker, it's like his focus on detail, his focus on food, like all of this stuff that we've highlighted in the other films is coming together here, and for me works so well.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I guess we'll come to this a bit later, but while I maybe don't think it's like his best film, it is his most Hosoda film.
Yes.
Like you said, Jake, it's like we've just got all of this stuff that we've seen, all of these themes that are really coming together in this film, and it feels like he's found where all of those things that he wants to include like really belong in a story and a look. And I think even from that like big opening, it's so evident that this is just like 10 steps up from something like Summer Wars, where he's kind of introducing you to this internet world. But I feel like he really like knows what he wants to say a bit more with it.
Yeah, and I think it's really brave in a way to so clearly redo something. Like, it's almost like he is like quite clearly looking back at something like Summer Wars and saying, like, let me have another go. Like, I think I can do more with this. Like, I still think it's good, and I still think it's a great thing to be mining for inspiration. But now I am at a skill level, and I have the resources to be able to go back to that well and do it properly. It reminds me in a way of Princess Mononoke, and we spoke before about how that film for Hayao Miyazaki feels like that is finally, he's reached his moment where he's got enough clout and he's got enough talent to put everything that he wants to into a film. And I wonder if that means Hosoda, that means next time we get his Spirited Away.
It's like, this really reminds me of when we did our Satoshi Kon miniseries and we got to Paprika, and it was like, oh, this is like the big final kind of amalgamation of all this stuff we've been seeing in his previous films. But obviously we didn't get to see anything else from Satoshi Kon after that, sadly. So yeah, this is such an open book as to like where we can go next.
It gets me so excited.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also like just in terms of how he's using kind of mixes of 3D CG and 2D animation, like all the technical stuff, looking back at, you know, early character design and background design, this is just, I feel like he's really showing off in this like opening sequence. You know, you've got kind of these amazing backgrounds and world building in the internet world of you that I cannot wait to go and see this on the biggest screen possible. I haven't really like managed to see it on like a big cinema screen yet. You have kind of Belle like lip syncing perfectly to the song she's singing. You have the song, which is an absolute banger, which I'm just gonna be listening to like again and again and again. It's like a really, really exciting, like, just it really hits you in the first few minutes.
That's what I love about this, and it is, it's from the very first moments of the film how he has found this sort of new version of what he's been doing all along, which is mashing together multiple influences, multiple types of animation, and now he's bringing in international like collaborators as well. So the first time you see Belle, who looks like she's come out of a Disney film, but she's set in this world which is his vision of what the internet is, mixed with this. I love Eric Wong's architectural designs, which is a sort of speculative architecture, as if physics and budget were no option. What would architecture look like? And so that fits perfectly into this online realm where there is no up and down, left and right. There is no it doesn't have to be gravity in the way there is in the physical world. So it really does come across as something almost the opposite in a way of what we've spoken about in the past with Miyazaki and with Cartoon Saloon, in a way where there is a signature style that is going to coming off a couple of key creative voices, whereas with Hosoda, he just loves embracing all sorts of voices and visions and talents within his films. And I think that's something that's quite easy to overlook in a way, because you just think, oh, visual overload, this is what anime and animation is. But what he's doing is quite subtly quite radical, I think, visually anyway. But we should, like, as you said, Jake, there are so many levels here that he's working at and paying off. So we should talk about the internet.
We should.
This new thing, World Wide Web, information superhighway. You said that it moves on. He's going back to the well that he went, that he tapped with Summer Wars. What's different here, and what's he saying about it on all these various levels? So how do we break it through here?
Well, I think so. There's the scale of it. Like, I think when you look at Summer Wars now, it looks like that's an internet of what seems to be 100 people. Whereas this feels like a representation of like the buzzing scale that we know a social network actually has. Like, you can imagine the billions of people that are using you, and that's in the design. Because when you look at you, it's this never-ending carriage train of kind of server skyscraper structures that just goes endlessly into the distance. And so it feels so much bigger, which makes the stakes ultimately feel bigger as well. But I think the infrastructure of it's fascinating. Like, it feels more like a lived-in world, which for me is something that I think Hosoda's really kind of validating for a lot of people through how he shows the internet, of like that this is, although it is a virtual world, it is a real world. And so showing you the inner workings of how you works, whether like that's from like everyone showing up at the concert hall, or whether there's like these self-appointed justices that want to gatekeep the community. Like, this feels like a very real space, and whilst also feeling like a true reflection of what the internet actually is, unfortunately, like for all its goodness and its badness. And Summer Wars, I think, presents a lovely, hopeful, utopian internet that gets destroyed in one instance, and it can either be like, it can be this great thing that can be destroyed, but we can take it back to that great thing. Whereas this is a more balanced view of the internet, I think. And so you're looking at all the goodness of it, and that this place where you can escape into and become another person, and that can free you, and that can help you evolve both within this virtual realm and your physical realm. But then he gets into so much stuff that is so true about how the internet gets used and exploited today as well. So there's a great line, like when Belle first reveals, or near when Belle first reveals herself as this superstar within you, that stardom is built on mixed opinions, and that is like so true now in the wave of like Farage, Jones, Lawrence Fox, like these types of characters, like who go up and up the ranks because people don't want to always believe in what these people are saying. They just want to react to it. And how he integrates comments into the world as well. These just aren't bits of text that come up on screen that are outside of the reality of you. They feel like physical billboards within you, and that is again just how we see comments online as well. Like, they are constantly flashing up opinion, and the ones that float to the top are the ones that have the most extreme voices, the ones that shout the loudest. And I love that he's exploring that within a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, like click hate culture, which is not something I expected at all, and like is so far from like what he was approaching with Summer Wars in terms of like his exploration of the internet.
Yeah, it feels much more like he has more of an anthropological angle on this one than pretty much anyone else making films about the internet has. And even down to the level of something that can be easily overlooked because it's very much in the early scenes. The sci-fi aspect almost of how the app scans your biometric data and creates an avatar which is an expression of your deeper inner self, which is almost like a sci-fi fairy tale combination going on here. And that is him getting this level of commentary around the way we act online, we as a population act online, which is as an exaggerated version of ourselves, rather than the way that some commentators would talk about it still now as being inhabit another life. You could do whatever you want. This is your second life. This is actually an exaggerated version of yourself, and all of those prejudices, the mob mentality, the groupthink that could affect the physical world, is on display here, but turned up to a whole new level. And that is an aspect to this with something like the Beauty and the Beast. The interesting thing about the Beauty and the Beast story that he's bringing in is that the Beast is a scapegoat in the small town, living in the castle, and Gaston and his lot are the mob. But in this, he's just a character who got in some fights in the fighting arena area of you, and there's this mystery that is in some ways stoked by the internet cops, the justices, the moderators, but in many ways is created by the user base. They create the main, to use a Twitter term, the protagonist of the platform. They create it because of their desire for more information. It makes me think of like very recent examples of like something goes up on TikTok or Twitter, and it's like mentions a person that may have done something, and immediately Twitter tries to find out who that person is, and then we've got this person. It's like, did you really need to do this?
Yeah.
There's a lot there that is observational anthropological stuff that's really fascinating, I think.
I think it's interesting as well that we see the main characters also like participating in that, even though they're trying to find out who the Beast is. I guess for good reasons. In the end, maybe at the start it's pure curiosity where they're just trying to find out who this person is. So they're also kind of participating in that, even if they think they're doing it, for
and
good reasons.
Belle's got clout, it's that addictive thing, isn't it? Like that's the thing that she's got right at the start is like when you have a tweet that blows up or something, or you put your face on Instagram for once, and the algorithm sends loads of likes your way. It's like that kind of refresh. She wants to go in there because she's suddenly got this kind of perfect world where everyone likes her and everyone's engaging with her, which she doesn't get in reality. And then this thing comes. I think she doesn't
really enjoy that though, right? Like I feel like it's a thing of she's using it to express herself, because in the real world she can't sing anymore because she's like really depressed and down, and in You she can finally like express herself properly, and it's just that she's in her own corner of You doing her own thing, and then people notice her and start following her. I don't know if she ever like really enjoys.
I think she enjoys
clout.
it in You. I think
well, it's also her Svengali friend who's stoking it.
Yeah,
all.
it's her her pal that's like laughing like a little goblin at the computer.
And who has the great anime glasses as well.
So good.
Spinning in the chair.
I think the way that they access the internet is a big step up from the way they do it in Summer Wars also. Because in Summer Wars we have that weird, I'm connected via my DS or my tiny flip phone. And then in this they're actually plugging some sort of kind of VR system into their heads. It reminded me of, do you know that Better Than Life short story from Red Dwarf where they it's like a virtual reality video game, but the game basically taps into your kind of subconscious desire. So Lister, one of the characters, just lives in It's a Wonderful Life every single day. Because that's like deep down what he really wants. But yeah, it kind of reminded me of that thing where I still find it really difficult to work out how they're actually like seeing the world when they're kind of walking around in the real world, but they're in You, in their kind of VR thing. But then I think it does do really well to show what it's like to like be kind of online in that way. And when all these kind of comments pop up, it's really difficult to just close the screen and walk away. Like you feel like you're in it, and that is part of real life, even though you could just like close it.
It's really smart in the way that it does it has it both, tries to have it both ways. So you will have shots of phone screens and computer screens that are just filling up with browser tab overload when they're trying to look at all these comments, and they're being flooded by comments. But then the online world of You is a sci-fi space, but also is such a great representation of how it can feel when you're scrolling through your feeds and suddenly everything gets a bit too overwhelming, and it's just all these voices, all these colourful characters. And if that can be turned against you, or whether it's or towards your own ends, that can be quite a powerful thing. Those that feeling of her looking at her phone and suddenly it goes from 0 and just the counter goes crazy,
20 million or something.
Terrifying.
But it's also it's what's quite fascinating about this is that It is very even-handed while being very clear-eyed as well about what the internet can offer. That this space for expression, it's space for connection, all these themes that Hosoda loves to explore, but also is very clear-eyed about how that can be misused, and there is something within humanity and our society as we know it that is can be quite corrupted.
Oh yeah, like so, I think the justices, aka the mods, are such a good creation, and quite a political statement from Hosoda as well. I think kind of getting into government regulation of the internet, which is fascinating for him to be exploring, but absolutely so there's a big, at the time of recording, there's been a big blow up on Reddit because of a subreddit called Anti-Work, and a mod from Anti-Work going on the news and kind of presenting themselves as the figurehead of this movement, and then that interview going terribly, and then that subreddit and all its many thousands of members getting blocked and then blocked, and then the subreddit getting deleted. And this all comes from people kind of coming out of the anonymity of the internet and presenting themselves as someone who can be a kind of a police figure within this world that in theory kind of shouldn't have, or has the potential to be, this utopian space. And so I love that this film is like anti the justices in that way, but I also think it's fascinating that they are so aligned with sponsorship as well. Gradually through the film, these justices have more and more ads that pop up behind them, and just kind of him just subtly saying the kind of government regulation of the internet is so aligned with the corporate side of the internet as well. And in the end of the film, the justices fail and all of the sponsors leave them behind. And I absolutely love that through this lovely telling of a fairy tale, you can make this statement about what an idealized version of the internet could be that doesn't just have this kind of corporate government ownership and lens on you at all times.
I do love how that kind of, is he called Justin, the main justice guy?
Justin Justice.
He's kind of like that, like the Gaston character in the original Beauty and the Beast. But I think, you're right. I don't really know if he's supposed to be like a government person, or he is just kind of some guy that everyone really likes online, and is followed by all of these kind of big sponsored accounts, and then I guess he just gets like a big head about it and feels like he has the power to take people down on, like
Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
it's left subtly vague in the way that you can, because he does talk in interviews, we maybe even speak about this in the next episode, about Facebook. He's very anti the platforms and the way they operate, but also that could just be an influencer account who's got a lot of followers and a lot of backers to be able to have that clout.
But quickly, before we move on past the internet stuff, Steph, what you mentioned about how they access the internet, and that's left kind of vague, I absolutely love, because in the other films I think that's been an issue, is that he has got bogged down in the workings of these systems. Like the girl who leapt through time just stops dead as soon as they start trying to explain that little kind of walnut object and how many lives you've got left and what it blah 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 blah, and who cares. And you is just like, you put these things in your ears, you go online, that's it, that's all you need to know.
I think it says a lot about like you saying in the context, Michael, about how Hosoda is thinking about how his kids will grow up in this world of being online. And you have it with flashbacks to Suzu being like 6 and she's learning to play piano, but she's learning on like an iPhone piano app when there's like a digital piano right there. It's not really, I don't think he's really saying, kids these days, they only want to use technology. But I think it's just a comment on how much it is in our lives now, and how I still find it weird, like how kids will be born into a world like this now where they will never not know what, an iPhone is or what VR is or something like that. And it's just something that they know how to do and know how to access. So Yeah.
It's a very rich area. But as you say, Jake, sort of on a lore level, he doesn't get bogged down in the workings of the world, but also he finds a way to resolve this in a way that that's human and about the connections. Whereas Summer War's ending was like, they just fight him really well. And
they do, though. They do fight him really well.
No, because it's quite. This is sort of what I've said at times, where I've found it very hard to find the emotional thread of wisdom that lies between the two worlds that he often works in and plays in, or that whether it's a metaphorical world or a digital world or whatever. In this one, it all comes to this point where it's just a song, and a beautiful song that is a moment for our protagonist. She has her gang behind her. Love shout out to the choir ladies, amazing characters. But then that song touches 4 billion users momentarily, and it's very easy for us as an audience to then relate to that, engage with that. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's not that she's not pulling off some great conceit, but then beyond that, to resolve the beast side of the story, there's something wonderfully profound that doesn't undermine the role the internet plays in our everyday lives. It's not go outside and play football. It'll be better. It's better for you. Touch some grass. It's something about the parasocial world we live in, where we have all these, we project all these relationships onto people through these social media networks. But there's something still so magical and important about inhabiting the same physical space with people, what you can give them. You may be able to broadcast your song to billions of people that can touch their hearts, but to actually change someone's life, sometimes you have to do the work, go the distance. And I love the moment. It's almost now, we have these still frames of women in space, young girls in space, through his films. The Girl Leapt Through Time when she's mid-leap. We have Mirai when she's holding Kun flying through the sky. And in this one, it's just as simple as Suzu standing in between the boy who's the beast and his brother and his father who's abusing them. There's something about that which is really powerful about humans and how we relate to each other. Really, it's that, and that is something I've been looking for in all these films, and that really touched me. That really moved me.
And it's all in the look. Like the stare that she gives him is so good. Just the withering look, and the way that he just crumbles is brilliant. And throughout the film, it's these moments where we said in Mirai as well, like that ends on that lovely look. That's all it needs. This film ends on that same thing. It's just this unspoken connection between these people, and like Belle is full of these little moments as well that I suppose kind of transcend language. That's the melody of Belle's song. It does that as well. It's that hum, that whistle. It doesn't matter what it's about. It connects all of these people, and kind of from a less emotional point of view, you've got those little bits like at the train station with the characters, like the way that they kind of slowly move in and out of frame, and he's got that locked off shot that's just positioned on these one shot of the train station and characters moving in and out of it because of their awkwardness and embarrassment. And yeah, just through the animation and no more than that, translating so much of the human experience, I suppose.
Yeah, I love how like cartoony the real world is in this film, where you have the kind of big emotional, epic moments in You, but then in the real world you have Canoe Guy and a girl dancing and playing saxophone, and all of those kind of little cartoony bits.
I got big Steph vibes from the first time that you see the girl playing the saxophone.
Well, I did play the saxophone.
I know. I could totally imagine you like one day that'll be a cosplay that you'll do. It's just like because the way that she bobs between like on either side of her legs, just totally in her moment, having a lovely time on the sax. I thought
that feels like a really hard dance to do while you're playing the sax. I'll give it a go. I'll let you know.
When we get on TikTok, that's going to be the content.
I absolutely love all the slice of life side of things, and it just shows as well that he strongly believes that no matter how much the internet changes our lives and becomes an everyday feature, there'll still be awkward teenagers unable to express themselves to one another.
Well, and I suppose from the opposite end of that, the slice of life, like being unable to express each other in like a real reality like the train station, there is that sequence which totally gets rid of that reality to show the relationships between teenagers as like a battle tactics game.
Yes. I love that. That's an example of him, how he just has a surplus of ideas, isn't it? He just throws that in there.
Yeah.
But it is such a good encapsulation of particularly how rumours and gossip can spread over sort of WhatsApp and text and so on. And then you have to react really quickly and think tactically. It's great. I do love that stuff. Maybe
I just wasn't on the text messages, but I thankfully wasn't in school when all of that was kicking off. We still weren't allowed phones, but I can imagine now teenagers in high school with mobile phones would be an absolute nightmare. Like the extent of like the strange WhatsApps now is like, remember when that guy and his mate said that the Queen is actually dead and that it was going to be announced, and it was a leaked WhatsApp that went around millions of people. That's the extent of our battle tactics.
We could talk about Belle like all day, I think, but do we have any other like recurring threads that we want to shout out so we can wrap this up in a bow? Steph, you have your food corner, don't you, that we've revisited a few times? I think
it's really interesting in this film as well how Suzu doesn't want to eat for the whole film, and there's a really nice kind of moment between her and her dad at the end where she accepts the offer of going out for a meal with him. Hosoda has portrayed family meals and mealtime and eating together in all of his films as a kind of, family and emotional point. So it's really nice that the film ends on that note. But yeah, I do want to shout out the use of peaches in, I think, every single film. So yeah, when I was reading the Mirai kind of production booklet in the DVD, there was a little section about how Hosoda thinks peaches symbolise death, so he likes to include them in his films. I did a little bit of research as well, but all I could find was that they symbolise kind of immortality and long life as well. But I think either way you look at them, whether you think they represent death or immortality, the kind of placement of them throughout his films, I think are really clever. Like Makoto is carrying peaches when she is about to get hit by the train in Girl Who Leapt Through Time. The kind of chief of the Beast town in The Boy and the Beast is wearing a kimono with peaches on it when he's kind of about to ascend to become a god and die. And Susie's dad brings home peaches in the film, and she uses them in her iced tea. And I think it's a really nice kind of, I guess, like a nice metaphor for family members that are missing in all of Hosoda's films. Like Susie's mum is missing in this film, but her presence is still really, really prominent, and she's kind of like with her for the whole film, and her memory is there. And yeah, it's a really nice little kind of physical metaphor for those, how family members that might not be with us anymore are maybe like still living on through us.
I love that several films after The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, on that episode we talked about how if you could travel through time, what would you do? And this girl went on an endless karaoke bender. So I love after all these films he returns to karaoke as a situation. However, in this case, it is the most anxiety-inducing, awful situation to be in. That idea of multiple people shoving microphones in your face and you've got to forcing you to sing. That is exactly what I'm like at karaoke. So very relatable moment for me. Jake, did you have something to shout out?
Oh yeah, well, I think there's him revisiting the parental montage, which we've seen in a few of the films, kind of most well done in Wolf Children, but coming back here, showing the relationship between Suzu and her mum, like as you said, Steph, playing the phone piano and kind of exploring their relationship and doing it so delicately and kind of really very quickly cementing the strength of their bond. So then when you get to the river sequence just a few minutes later, it is properly harrowing stuff. The whiplash between kind of the joy and the tragedy there, I think, is amazing. And yeah, just what you're saying about the peaches and watching all of these films so quickly in succession, and like how many threads we found between them. It's almost like he's a filmmaker to collect. Like there's something really satisfying about working your way through each of these films and connecting the dots in a way. It's not like a puzzle and like it's a cinematic universe to understand or something. But it is really lovely to just see these continuing things. And as well as those peaches, we of course have the whales, which are back.
The whales are back.
Yes. And so we've got these amazing whale sound systems that Belle flies through you. And we've seen the whales, John and Yoko, in Summer Wars. And then there's the whale kind of kaiju creature in The Boy and the Beast. And there's the whale crackers in Mirai. And now we have a big whale again. Yeah.
Yeah, that is an interesting motif to return to, isn't it?
One last thing, because this is his first and only film that made me do a big cry. And so I should shout out the moment, which is when Suzu appears as Suzu, not Belle, in You.
Absolutely,
and like
big cry moment.
That statement of Belle is Suzu, Suzu is Belle, this unveiling of who this person is, and kind of that total blend of these two worlds that we now have, and that like actually like the veil between them is much thinner than we actually think. Beautiful.
It's very big Spider-Man 2 vibes where Peter Parker's unveiled and all of New York is like, we won't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Your secret's safe with us.
He's just a kid.
But, Jake, you're right. It's been such a treat going through all these films in quick succession, tearing them apart, putting them back together, seeing the thread. I really think there's been such a great arc to this miniseries. But the most important thing, of course, is now we've watched them all, we all have to arbitrarily order them best to worst or favourite to least favourites. So this will be our final Hoss order coming up next. So, final Hoss orders. Steph, I'll come to you first.
Okay. I'm trying to work out where I want to put this because my current ranking is Mirai at the top, then Wolf Children, then Girl Who Leapt Through Time, then Boy and the Beast, then Summer Wars. And yeah, like I said at the beginning, while I don't think this is his best film, it is his most Hosoda film. I guess I'm really excited to go back, see this. I'm pretty sure it's coming out in the IMAX in London at some point, so
that'd be awesome.
Really excited to go and see that and experience it again. So I think at the moment it's sitting second for me in between Mirai and Wolf Children. It's got that really good mix of, technical capability with the big crying that gets me in Wolf Children. So I think that's where it is for me at the moment. What about you, Jake?
Probably guess that it's top of the tree for me. I really loved Summer Wars, which was my number one, and this is doing everything Summer Wars was trying to do and doing it better. And I think there's something so satisfying about kind of seeing someone realize their potential, I suppose, as well. Like he's shown us the skill that he has and the things that he's interested in, and it's never fully clicked, and now it has. So for me, it would go Belle, Summer Wars, Mirai, Wolf Children, Girl Who Leapt Through Time, Boy and the Beast. And Michael has...
I'd literally just written that out just seconds before you did it.
Is yours exactly the same?
I think it's exactly the same. This is really tough for me. So yes, the simple thing, the easy thing for me to say is Belle is my absolute favourite of his. I think that is a culmination of everything I've loved about films that I've not fully loved. All these great moments all the way through. I think before we started this miniseries, when we were talking about it, when we first thought about covering him, I said that he's had moments of greatness, but I've never fully loved one of his films. And Belle is the one to change that. That's the one where what I've been looking for, that moment, that really moved me, that had that kernel of wisdom about the way we live, was there. So Belle is absolute top for me. And then I suppose everything else kind of is on level pegging. So I don't want to feel like I'm doing anyone down by saying it goes Belle, Summer Wars, Mirai, Wolf Children, Girl Who Leapt, Boy and the Beast. But I think that all of those have something to recommend in them, really. I think the only real clear distinction would be between the mid-table and Boy and the Beast. Boy and the Beast was one that we didn't really connect, I didn't connect with much at all. It was him trying a different genre. But gosh, what a great filmmaker to trace across his career, with these growing ambitions, these real principles he has about the storytelling, but also his collaboration, who he brings to work with, and then this growing sense of commentary, both as a person drawing from his life as a father, well, as a boyfriend, fiance, husband, father, father of one, father of two. Just, it feels like with every stage in his life, he finds something new to bring to the screen. But then also, as we've said in this one, as a commentator on our social world, as impacted by the internet. So, this has given me new appreciation to all of his films. Is that the same for you, Steph?
Yeah, definitely. And I can't wait to watch the Digimon movie in 2 weeks' time, when we kind of come back to his early work. I think it'll be really fun I think we'll get a lot out of that now that we've seen everything that he's done, and then we're going right back to the beginning.
He's absolutely his own voice and his own filmmaker, and we'll hear from him a lot in next episode. And we should say the early works that we've got for the final episode of the series. I know we had a couple of comments when we launched saying, where's One Piece, where's Digimon? And I suppose we wanted to look at him as a filmmaker outside of the franchise world. With Girl Who Leapt Through Time, that's where he really starts this track that we can see is him as the director, as co-writer, graduating to having his own studio. That was the arc. Whereas now we'll go back and see if any of these threads were even there beforehand when he was doing work in the grind of making TV movies or movies based on TV series. Jake, do you know what you're getting yourself in for with some of these things that we're going to be covering in the early works? Like Digimon, One Piece, do you have any history or experience with those?
Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon Are the Champions. That's about my knowledge. And
One Piece is about pirates, so we might get some whales.
Yeah, there's a pirate king, I understand. Yeah. Yes, I'm I'm looking forward to the Digimon soundtrack. But that's maybe the extent of my excitement at this point. Who knows? All I remember is that Digimon is the best TV show, Pokemon's the best video game, and Yu-Gi-Oh is the best card game.
Well, that's all to come in 2 episodes' time. And next episode, we'll be back with a wonderful in-depth interview with Mamoru Hosoda himself. But until then, tweet at us. We're at Ghibliotheque on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram, ghibliotheque.pod. Maybe send us an email, ghibli@little.studios.com. That final episode will also be a mailbag special, so we'd love to hear your rankings, your thoughts, your theories, what themes you've been picking up as you've been watching along with us. That would be great to see. We'll read them out on the episode. You can also follow us individually. You can find Steph on Twitter at _Steph Watts.
You can find Jake at Jake H. Cunningham.
And if you're feeling supersonic, you can follow Michael on Twitter at Michael J. Leader.
Ghibliotheque is a Little Dot Studios production. Our music is by Anthony Ng, and the show is produced by Michael Leader, Jake Cunningham, Harold McShill, and Steph Watts. Hi listeners, thanks for sticking through the credits. Now, we know that Hosoda's films have often been about dads and their children and father figures, and there's one actor who seems to have Hosoda's heart as the ultimate voice of the father figure, Koji Yakusho, who's a very big actor in Japan. He's been in films like 13 Assassins, Tampopo, and many, many more. But he's played a father figure character in the last 3 Hosoda movies. So he was Kumatetsu, the kind of gruff beast father in Boy and the Beast. He was the great-grandfather in Mirai, who lets young Kun ride on his motorbike. And he also has a small part as Suzu's father in Belle. So listen out for him next time you watch a Hosoda film and see if you can recognise his voice.